Do you mind sharing a little bit about your approach?
100%, brother. So let's start with principles, right? So principles is self-awareness is the key, right, to understanding how to be successful in life. And self-awareness to me, because I feel it's not well understood. I know Gary Vee talks a lot about it, but there's not much like granular definition here. Is I think a human being who is self-aware understands their strengths as well as their weaknesses equally. So in the same way, I could tell you how great I am at XYZ, and we'll talk a little bit about that as to why I like podcast guesting as a medium. But the other piece is also understanding what I'm shit at. And I'll give you a couple of examples right now. Can't sing. I won't be able to get drafted to the NBA. I'll never be a basketball player professionally, anyways, maybe in my backyard, but never that. Or when it came to YouTube, I never edited a single video in my life. I suck at editing. I hate the camera thing, like putting a camera and doing all that stuff. So understanding that, how like being very self-aware about all of my weaknesses as much as my strengths allows me to hire out effectively. So going back to podcast guesting, what I realized is at the end of the day, to share my message with MasterTalk, there's many ways to do it, right? You can go on TikTok, you can do all of these 100 different tactics. But I realized that helped the most is podcast guesting because that's the medium I shine at. Podcast guesting, YouTube videos, and like keynote speeches are probably the three mediums where I feel I'm world class at. So instead of waiting on the algorithm to save me, right? I think the last time I was on your show, I think I had like 2,000 subscribers or something really low. I just said, like, wait a second, if I just am the world's most guested podcaster, even if the show is super tiny, as long as they care to interview, they care about the topic. If I just do 2,000 podcasts or 1,000 podcasts a year, and I develop a raving fan base, like people who genuinely know me because we're having a deeper conversation, and you'll always know me. Well, if I have 5,000 of these people, regardless of their podcast size, if they just share my YouTube channel with 10 people, I'll have 50,000 subscribers, I'll still win. Right. So I think the key is I just realized that podcast guesting was the most efficient medium because like I just feel I'm better than most communication coaches at this. And then the other piece is it's a numbers game. You just meet a lot of people, you build friendships instead of like being transactional. Like I've never gotten a client from you. It's not about that. It's about like building the friendship, the relationship. But when you've been on like 10,000 shows, which will be the case for me in like 10 years, like you're done. You're going to be like Gary Vee, and everyone's going to, those 10,000 people will share it with 100 people, and you have 1 million subscribers, and you're done, right? So yeah.
So how many podcasts have you been on? Do you know?
I was on 18 last week. So I had to guess. I mean, my friend always shoots me for overestimating the number, so I'm going to be pessimistic here. If I had to guess, I mean, I think we met like when I was starting my run. Like I think you were podcast number like 10 or something. Like that's how early I think our show was. I think I've been on 400 or 500 at this point. That's
Wow.
probably what the number is now. Probably, but I don't really know, to be honest, brother. I don't know.
It'd be nice to know that metric though, no?
Yeah. And then the other piece that I wanted to add to that, I forgot, is also balancing your strengths and weaknesses with what you genuinely like. Like this, I genuinely like this. It's not like, oh my God, I have to talk to Thomas. It's like, yeah, like I haven't seen Thomas in like a year and a half. And it's a great way for me to keep in touch with people. Right. So it's fun for me. Whereas other people who are more introverted, and you're right, I should probably get the stat behind that. There's other people who wouldn't like this, who'd be like, oh my God, podcast guesting is not for me. I'd rather just like make more videos on other socials. So I think it's really understanding your strengths. And it also goes back to what you do in life. Like think about me, I'm in the coaching space, right? There's pros and cons to that. The pro is, high margin business. You don't need a lot of clients to make multiple six, multiple seven. So it's very easy for you to make a living if you're great at it. But there's a con. And the con is you got to really love people. You got to really be energetic. And if you don't like people, you can never do well in this business. So it's about understanding even the game that you're playing. And that's where self-awareness is key. So if someone's really good at coding and they're really introverted, they shouldn't be a coach, right? They should, or be a podcast guest. They should be like an engineer at Microsoft and make $300,000 a year, right? So it's all about understanding who we are and what we want to do.
So based on all that, would you say that you're successful?
Fascinating question. I didn't expect this conversation, Thomas. Really putting me on the spot today. I would say this is a tricky one because what is success at the end of the day? I think for me personally, I am successful, because my metrics of success are probably very different than most people. Like even today, I still live with my mother, right? Like what am I, 26? I have a successful business now. I still live with her because I want to spend more time with her. It keeps my burn rate low. And I know we're entering recession, so I got to be smart with my cash flow. But I think the other piece to that is for me, success and how I defined it when I was like 19, it still is the same today. It's just changed a little bit, was making 50 grand a year. Right. So the second I was making 50 grand a year, which was like a long time ago, I was super happy. And I think a lot of happiness is expectation, right? In the sense of if we have a certain expectation, like I want to buy a Ferrari, let's say, I don't personally, but let's say that is the goal and you haven't bought it, there's going to be a delta of unhappiness there. But the other piece, Thomas, is going like, if you really ask yourself the hard questions to figure out what you're happy with, then you're successful. And for me, the definition of my own success is having enough money to sustain MasterTalk in my living standard, which is the money I'm currently making. So I'm good with that. And the second piece, which I didn't have last time we talked, and I do now, is because I had a corporate job before. In our first conversation, was being able to use every minute of every day doing exactly what I want to be doing. Like every meeting I look at my calendar, even if I work a ton, I look forward to it. So I start my day, go, yes, I get to start with the conversation with Thomas, then I get to do this, then I get to do that. But in corporate, you don't get that luxury. But I could have been making way more money in corporate had I stayed there. It's not the case anymore, but when I made the decision to quit, that was the conundrum that I had to face. So yes, I do believe I am successful. And now the goal is really bonus at this point.